Fired the homeless man, his true identity was CEO. The company was shocked when he returned. The air in the Grand VentureTech Innovations boardroom was thick with an anticipation that felt almost palpable, yet for most of those gathered, it was merely the anticipation of an easy victory, a rubber stamping of their meticulously crafted, profit-maximizing strategies. Cassandra Thorne, her sharp, tailored suit a testament to her meticulously cultivated image, adjusted the microphone before her, a triumphant smirk playing on her lips. She was poised to deliver the final blow, to announce the latest round of efficiency optimizations that would, in her mind, finally rid the company of its dead weight, a term she frequently, and proudly, applied to anyone deemed less than optimally productive, anyone who didn't contribute directly to the bottom line. Her gaze swept across the polished mahogany table, lingering for a fraction of a second on the newly appointed, outwardly frail interim CEO, a man named Mr. Finch, who sat at the head of the table, his posture surprisingly rigid for someone so unassuming. He seemed almost a ghost, a placeholder easily dismissed. A quiet certainty settled within Silas, for he knew the game Cassie believed she was winning was already lost, and the true player had just made his move. With these measures, Cassie announced, her voice resonating with an almost predatory satisfaction that seemed to echo off the high ceilings, VentureTech will achieve an unprecedented 15% increase in quarterly profits, primarily by re-evaluating our, less essential, personnel and streamlining our operational workflows. It's about cutting the fat, gentlemen and ladies, ensuring only the most robust and contributing elements remain. She paused, a calculated silence designed to elicit applause, a nod of approval, perhaps even a murmured congratulations. Instead, a low, steady voice, unexpectedly strong, cut through the expectant stillness. The fat, Ms. Thorne, as you so eloquently put it, is about to be trimmed from a very different part of the corporate body. All eyes in the room snapped to Mr. Finch. He had risen slowly, deliberately, his movements belying the frailty he projected. His gaze, which had previously seemed distant and passive, now held an unnerving intensity, a deep, knowing glint that seemed to absorb all light. A ripple of confusion, then palpable annoyance, spread through the room. Who was this man, this temporary placeholder, this interim figurehead, to interrupt Cassie's moment of glory, her carefully orchestrated triumph? A junior board member scoffed, muttering under his breath about losing his grip, his words laced with barely concealed contempt. Cassie herself narrowed her eyes, a flash of pure irritation crossing her perfectly composed features, threatening to mar her flawless visage. Mr. Finch, she began, her tone laced with patronizing disdain, a thinly veiled dismissal, I believe we were discussing the future of VentureTech. Perhaps you misunderstood the agenda item. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched Mr. Finch's lips. It was a smile of profound irony, of a secret knowledge about to burst forth and shatter their carefully constructed realities. Oh, I assure you, Miss Thorne, I understand the agenda perfectly. More than you could ever imagine. In fact, he continued, his voice gaining strength, each word deliberate, resonant, his eyes locking onto Cassie's with an unwavering intensity, I believe it's time for a different kind of re-evaluation. A re-evaluation of character, of loyalty, and of what truly constitutes worth within this company. He reached into his jacket pocket, not for notes or a prepared speech, but for something small and metallic, something that gleamed faintly in the boardroom lights. The board members exchanged bewildered glances, their whispers growing louder, a chorus of uncertainty. This was not the docile figure they had expected. This was not the man they had dismissed as an irrelevant, temporary fixture, easily manipulated. And as he pulled out a small, intricately engraved gold key, a symbol of unlocking, of revelation, and then, with a deliberate motion, removed a subtle facial prosthetic that had masked his true features, the collective gasp of the room was almost deafening. The kind, yet undeniably firm, eyes that emerged were unmistakably those of Silas Venture, the reclusive, legendary founder and CEO of VentureTech Innovations, a man presumed to be on an extended, indefinite sabbatical. A man Cassie Thorne had, just weeks ago, contemptuously fired from the lowest rung of his own company. The game was indeed over, and the one who thought she was the hunter was about to become the hunted. Silas Venture was not merely a CEO, he was an architect of the future, a visionary whose innovations had reshaped entire industries and accumulated a fortune beyond measure. At 62, he carried the weight of his empire with a quiet dignity, a stoicism born of immense responsibility, but beneath the veneer of staggering success, a profound disillusionment had taken root. For years, he had watched venture tech grow, its branches reaching further, its profits soaring higher, each quarterly report a testament to its relentless ascent. Yet, with each triumph, he felt a creeping emptiness, a chilling sense that the very soul of the company he had painstakingly built was eroding, piece by precious piece. His initial vision had been one of innovation fueled by human ingenuity, born from collaborative spirit, and driven by a genuine desire to improve lives, to push the boundaries of what was possible for the betterment of society. But over time, the relentless, insatiable pursuit of profit had overshadowed all else, becoming the sole, unyielding metric of success. He saw it in the cold, statistical reports that reduced human beings to mere numbers on a spreadsheet, in the aggressive acquisition strategies that prioritized market dominance over ethical integration, leaving a trail of broken promises and disillusioned employees. Most disturbingly, he saw it in the faces of his own board members. They were shrewd, certainly, and efficient beyond question, but their eyes often held a calculating glint, a focus solely on the bottom line, devoid of the spark of empathy or the warmth of true human connection. They spoke of synergy and optimization with sterile precision, but their words were merely euphemisms for layoffs and cost-cutting, actions that bled the company of its human spirit. They championed employee engagement while subtly eroding benefits, demanding ever-increasing output, and fostering a culture of fear and exhaustion. Silas, from his gilded cage at the top, felt a growing chasm between his founding principles and the company's current trajectory, a chasm that threatened to swallow the very essence of venture tech. The breaking point had come subtly, a series of seemingly minor incidents that coalesced into a damning indictment, a crescendo of ethical decay. There was the time he overheard a young engineer, passionate about a sustainable energy project, being openly ridiculed by a senior manager for focusing on tree-hugging idealism instead of marketable deliverables, his youthful enthusiasm crushed under the weight of corporate cynicism. Then, a comprehensive proposal for an employee wellness program, one that Silas himself had quietly championed as a vital investment in his people, was summarily dismissed by the board as an unnecessary expenditure that would eat into shareholder value. He listened to the arguments, sterile and logically presented on paper, yet utterly devoid of humanity, of any recognition for the well-being of the individuals who made the company run. They spoke of people as resources to be exploited, numbers to be manipulated, not individuals to be nurtured, to be valued beyond their immediate utility. His board, hand-picked for their undeniable business acumen, had become a distorted mirror reflecting his deepest fears, confirming his creeping dread. Marcus Sterling, the CFO, obsessed with quarterly reports and financial projections, saw every employee as a mere line item on a balance sheet, a cost to be minimized. Evelyn Hayes, the head of strategy, championed aggressive market tactics that bordered on unethical, her chilling motto being, "If it's not illegal, it's fair game," a philosophy that chipped away at the company's integrity. And then there was Cassandra Thorne, the head of human resources, a woman whose chilling efficiency was matched only by her profound lack of compassion. She was the architect of the very policies that stripped away employee benefits, introduced draconian performance metrics, and glorified burnout as a sign of dedication. She was the embodiment of everything Silas now despised about the modern corporate world, a cold, calculating force prioritizing profit above all else. He watched her operate, a predator in a power suit, culling the weak, rewarding only the ruthless, the unfeeling. The irony was not lost on him. He, the founder, the visionary, felt like a stranger in his own house, an intruder in the empire he had painstakingly built. He had poured his life into this company, yet he no longer recognized its soul, its guiding spirit. He began to question, had his wealth created a monster? Had his overwhelming success blinded him to the human cost of his empire? He needed to see, truly see, what had become of venture tech, not from the detached, top-down perspective of a CEO, but from the bottom up, from the perspective of those who were most vulnerable, most exposed to the company's true ethos, its unwritten rules. He needed to feel the chill of its neglect, the sting of its indifference. The idea, audacious and seemingly mad, began to form in his mind, a desperate gamble for the soul of his company. He would strip away his identity, his immense wealth, his formidable power. He would become invisible, a nobody, a relic, and apply for the most menial of jobs within one of his own subsidiary offices. He would walk the halls of his empire as a ghost, observing, listening, experiencing firsthand the harsh reality of his company's culture, the true impact of the policies he had allowed to fester. His goal was not merely to find corruption or inefficiency, though he suspected he would find plenty. His goal was far grander, far more profound, to test humanity itself. To see if empathy, integrity, and genuine kindness could still thrive in a world increasingly dominated by greed and ambition, by the relentless pursuit of profit. He wanted to know if there were still individuals within venture tech who saw beyond titles and balance sheets, who recognized inherent worth in every human being, regardless of their status or appearance. The plan was meticulously crafted, every detail considered, every contingency planned. He consulted a trusted, long-time personal assistant, Ms. Albright, a woman whose loyalty was as unshakable as her discretion. She was sworn to absolute secrecy, her unwavering support a cornerstone of his audacious endeavor. Together, they devised a convincing disguise, a shabbily dressed, elderly man with a stooped posture, graying, unkempt hair, and a worn, tired face, etched with the subtle marks of a difficult life. His name would be Silas Finch, a common enough surname to blend seamlessly into the urban anonymity, yet retaining a subtle, almost playful nod to his true identity for his own private amusement. He would carry a fabricated, minimalist backstory, a widower, fallen on hard times, seeking basic manual labor to make ends meet, a poignant tale designed to evoke sympathy, or perhaps, indifference. He even went so far as to create a slightly impaired gait, a subtle tremor in his hands, to further sell the illusion of age and frailty, to truly disappear into the persona of a forgotten elder. He had funds covertly transferred to a prepaid debit card, enough for meager living expenses, but nothing that would betray his true wealth or hint at his opulent past. His grand, opulent mansion in the hills was left in Ms. Albright's capable care, a silent sentinel awaiting his return. He chose a subsidiary office in a bustling downtown district, far enough from his main corporate headquarters to ensure his disguise would not be easily penetrated by anyone who might have casually seen him before. This was his great experiment, a journey into the very heart of his own creation, a descent into the forgotten corners of his empire, to find out if it still possessed a heart at all. He had to know if the company he built was still worthy of its name, if it still embodied the values he cherished, or if it had devolved into a soulless machine, prioritizing profit over people, controlled by individuals like Cassandra Thorne, who had forgotten what it truly meant to be human. He was ready to find out. Silas Venture, now Silas Finch, stepped onto the bustling city streets, the cacophony of urban life a stark, jarring contrast to the quiet solitude of his sprawling estate. The worn trench coat, several sizes too large, hung loosely on his stooped shoulders, a shroud of anonymity, and the scuffed, ill-fitting shoes pinched his feet, a constant, physical reminder of the discomfort he sought to understand. The disguise was deliberately uncomfortable, forcing him to feel the vulnerability he was trying to observe in others, to embody the very struggles he sought to uncover. He looked, truly, like a man who had seen better days, a forgotten elder in a world obsessed with youth and dynamism, a figure easily overlooked, easily dismissed. His first few days were a chilling revelation, a stark confirmation of his deepest fears. He approached various departments within the venture tech building, a gleaming tower of corporate ambition, seeking even the most basic of roles, janitorial, mailroom, simple filing. The receptionists, typically trained to project the company's polished image, often gave him cursory, dismissive glances, their practiced smiles tightening into strained grimaces as they told him, their voices devoid of warmth, "We're not hiring for that right now," or all positions require advanced digital literacy, clearly implying he was too old, too slow, too irrelevant for the demands of their modern, fast-paced world. He was often directed, almost as an afterthought, to the Human Resources Department, a place that felt like a final arbiter of worth, a corporate gatekeeper designed to filter out the undesirable. And so, he found himself, one crisp Monday morning, standing before the desk of Cassandra Thorne's personal assistant. The assistant, a young woman with perfectly coiffed hair, her face a mask of carefully applied makeup, and a perpetually bored expression, looked up from her screen, her eyes briefly scanning Silas's disheveled appearance before returning to her monitor with an audible sigh, a clear sign of annoyance at the interruption. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked, her voice flat, devoid of any genuine inquiry. "No, ma'am," Silas replied, his voice deliberately raspy, a little shaky, his posture conveying a humble deference. "I was hoping to inquire about any available positions. Manual labor, perhaps. I'm quite strong for my age, and I'm a quick learner." He offered a small, hopeful smile, a test to see if it would be reciprocated, if a flicker of warmth would break through her professional detachment. It wasn't. The assistant, without even bothering to look at him, pointed a manicured finger towards a generic online portal. "All applications are submitted digitally. We don't accept walk-ins. And we certainly don't have manual labor positions here. This is venture tech, not a construction site." Her tone was dismissive, bordering on contempt, her words a clear statement of his perceived unsuitability. Silas, feigning confusion, scratched his head, playing the part of the technologically illiterate elder. "Oh, I see. I'm not very good with computers, ma'am. My old eyes, you see." Before he could finish, a sharp, imperious voice cut in from behind the assistant's desk. "What is going on out here, Brenda?" Cassandra Thorne emerged from her office, a vision of corporate power, her eyes like chips of ice, reflecting no warmth, only a cold calculation. She moved with an almost aggressive efficiency, radiating an aura of barely contained impatience, her presence dominating the space. Her gaze fell upon Silas, and a look of unconcealed distaste immediately contorted her perfectly composed features, a grimace of annoyance. "Just an unsolicited applicant, Ms. Thorne," Brenda mumbled, clearly intimidated by her boss's formidable presence. Cassie stepped forward, stopping a few feet from Silas, maintaining a deliberate distance. She looked him up and down, her eyes lingering on his worn clothes, the faint tremor he feigned in his hands, the lines etched on his disguised face, assessing him, judging him. Her lip curled slightly, a subtle but unmistakable sign of disdain. "An applicant? For what, exactly? Are you lost, old man? This is a technology conglomerate, not a soup kitchen." Her voice was like a whip, sharp and cutting, slicing through the thin veil of his carefully constructed disguise, aimed directly at his perceived vulnerability. A cold certainty settled in Silas's gut, this was the individual he had come to test, and she was already failing spectacularly, revealing her true character without hesitation. Silas, playing his part, shuffled his feet, his gaze lowered. "I just need a job, ma'am. Anything. I'm a hard worker. I've been, between places, you see. I just need a chance." He tried to infuse his voice with a quiet desperation, a plea for understanding. Cassie scoffed, a short, sharp sound devoid of humor, completely unsympathetic. "A chance? This isn't a charity, mister." She paused, expecting him to fill in a name, a formality she clearly found tiresome. "Finch. Silas Finch." "Mr. Finch," she repeated, the name tasting like ash on her tongue, an unpleasant foreign object. "This is a competitive corporate environment. We hire the best and the brightest, not those looking for a handout. Your appearance, and frankly, your age, suggest you be a liability, not an asset. We prioritize efficiency and cutting-edge talent. You don't fit that profile. At all." She gestured vaguely towards the door, a dismissive flick of her wrist. "There's nothing for you here. I suggest you try a community outreach center, or perhaps a retirement home. You're wasting our time." The words were not just a rejection, they were a public humiliation, delivered with a callous disregard for human dignity. Her tone, her body language, the barely concealed disgust in her eyes, it all screamed a profound lack of respect, a dehumanizing dismissal of an individual based solely on superficial appearance and perceived lack of utility. Silas felt a pang, not of personal hurt, for he knew who he truly was, but of profound disappointment for the company he had built, for the values it had seemingly abandoned. This was the culture she fostered, the values she championed, the ethos she instilled in her department. He had witnessed it with his own eyes, experienced it in his own feigned vulnerability, the callous indifference of his own creation. His suspicions were not merely confirmed, they were solidified into an unshakable conviction that drastic action was needed. "Thank you for your time, ma'am," Silas said, his voice quiet, almost a whisper, his gaze meeting hers steadily, a silent challenge she was too arrogant, too self-absorbed to perceive. He turned and slowly shuffled away, the weight of her disdain pressing down on his disguised shoulders, a tangible burden. As Silas made his way through the bustling corridor, his mind was a whirlwind of observations, each interaction a brushstroke adding to a grim portrait of his company. He had seen the cold, sterile efficiency of the corporate world he'd built, embodied by the chillingly detached figure of Cassie Thorne. He had felt the sting of dismissive judgment, the dehumanizing indifference that permeated the HR department. He knew then, with absolute certainty, that a radical change was needed. The company had lost its way, straying far from the human-centric values he had once instilled, succumbing to the corrosive pursuit of profit. He needed to return, not just as CEO, but as a force of nature, ready to prune the dead wood and nurture new growth, to restore its lost soul. He was about to exit the building, the heavy glass doors beckoning him towards the anonymity of the city, when a soft voice, hesitant yet clear, called out to him. "Excuse me, sir." Silas turned, feigning a slight startle, his movements slow and deliberate. A young man, probably in his mid-twenties, stood hesitantly a few feet away. He wore a slightly rumpled shirt, his tie a little askew, and there were faint dark circles under his eyes, suggesting long hours, a weary dedication. This was Liam, a junior analyst Silas had heard about in passing, known for his diligence but also for his quiet, unassuming nature, a fleeting mention in a forgotten report. Liam himself was struggling, often skipping lunch to save money, taking on extra shifts, his family facing mounting medical bills that stretched his meager analyst salary to its breaking point. Despite his own burdens, a genuine concern was etched on his face, a raw empathy that cut through the corporate veneer. "Are you all right, sir?" Liam asked, his voice gentle, laced with genuine concern. I couldn't help but overhear. Ms. Thorne can be a bit direct." He offered a small, empathetic smile, a gentle attempt to soften the blow, a kind lie offered freely. "She didn't mean to be harsh, I'm sure." Silas, ever the observer, recognized the true empathy behind the white lie, the underlying compassion that prompted the young man's intervention. "I've been better, son. Just looking for an honest day's work." He allowed a hint of weariness to enter his voice. Liam nodded, his gaze compassionate, understanding. "I understand. It's tough out there. Look, I know it's not much, but," he glanced around furtively, a quick, almost nervous scan of the empty corridor, then reached into his bag, pulling out a plastic container. "I packed an extra lunch today. My mom always makes too much. It's just a sandwich and some fruit. But if you haven't eaten," he offered the container, his hand trembling slightly, a gesture of quiet generosity that belied his own financial struggles, a simple, unsolicited act of human kindness. This small act, this simple offering of a warm meal from a stranger, spoke volumes. It was not a grand gesture, not a calculated move, but it was real, offered from a place of true human kindness, not calculation or obligation. It was the antithesis of everything Cassie represented, a beacon of light in the corporate gloom. Silas took the container, his fingers brushing Liam's. The sandwich felt substantial, the fruit fresh, the simple weight a profound gift. "Thank you, son. That's very kind of you." He looked into Liam's tired but sincere eyes, and for the first time since embarking on his mission, a flicker of true hope ignited within him, a warmth spreading through his chest. Liam shrugged, a faint blush on his cheeks, uncomfortable with the attention. "Just thought you might need it. And, don't give up, okay? There are always opportunities. Sometimes you just have to look in unexpected places." He offered another small, encouraging smile, a genuine wish for the old man's well-being. "Good luck, Mr. Finch." With that, Liam gave a quick nod and hurried back towards his desk, clearly uncomfortable with being observed, yet driven by an innate sense of decency, a moral compass that pointed true north. Silas watched him go, the simple lunch in his hand feeling heavier than any gold he possessed, more valuable than any corporate acquisition. He had found it. The glimmer of compassion, the inherent goodness he had so desperately hoped to find within his company, the proof that its soul was not entirely lost. It wasn't in the boardrooms or the HR offices, not in the polished presentations or the glowing reports, but in the quiet, unassuming act of a struggling junior analyst. The contrast between Cassie's chilling cruelty and Liam's profound kindness was a stark, undeniable testament to the two opposing paths VentureTech could take, two futures vying for its soul. His resolve hardened. The company would be reformed, its ethos reshaped, starting from the very top, and those who had failed his test, those who had forgotten the fundamental value of human decency, would learn a very harsh lesson indeed. He had seen enough. It was time for Silas Venture to return. Weeks later, the atmosphere in the VentureTech Innovations boardroom was electric, charged with a nervous energy, though tinged with an undercurrent of unease, a premonition of change. A special board meeting had been called, ostensibly to finalize the controversial new efficiency metrics, championed by Cassandra Thorne and enthusiastically backed by Marcus Sterling and Evelyn Hayes. Cassie sat at the table, radiating triumph, her presentation meticulously prepared, detailing the projected millions in savings from her latest round of cost-cutting, her empire-building efforts. She frequently glanced towards Mr. Finch, the interim CEO, who sat quietly at the head of the table, seemingly lost in thought, a docile figure. She assumed he was simply overwhelmed by the complexity of the proposals, or perhaps just too timid to challenge her, too meek to stand in the way of her grand vision. The meeting began, and Cassie launched into her presentation, her voice confident and commanding, her words dripping with corporate jargon that masked the undeniable human cost of her policies, the cold statistics hiding shattered lives. And thus, by reclassifying our ancillary support staff as non-essential operational overhead, we project a 7% reduction in our Q3 expenditure, without compromising core functionality. She beamed, awaiting the inevitable nods of approval, the silent acclaim for her ruthless efficiency. Just as she was about to elaborate on the next phase of her plan, a proposal to outsource a significant portion of the customer service department to a low-wage offshore provider, a move designed to further inflate profits at the expense of local jobs, the heavy oak doors of the boardroom swung open with a quiet, deliberate creak. All heads turned, a collective snap of attention. Standing framed in the doorway was Ms. Albright, Silas Venture's longtime, fiercely loyal personal assistant, her expression unreadable, her posture radiating quiet authority. Beside her, impeccably dressed in a custom-tailored suit that exuded quiet power, a subtle elegance, stood a man whose face was familiar, yet subtly different, transformed. His posture was upright, confident, his eyes clear and sharp, piercing, and his hair, though still gray, was immaculately styled, a stark contrast to the unkempt wisps of Silas Finch. He carried himself with an undeniable authority that instantly commanded attention, silencing the room. A murmur rippled through the room, a collective gasp of recognition. "Who is that?" someone whispered, the question hanging in the air. "He looks familiar." Cassie, annoyed by the interruption, her triumph momentarily derailed, glared at Ms. Albright, her eyes flashing. "Ms. Albright, this is a private board meeting. You cannot simply barge in." Her voice was sharp, a reprimand. The man beside Ms. Albright took a slow, deliberate step forward, his movements purposeful. His gaze swept over the room, acknowledging each board member with a silent intensity that seemed to penetrate their very souls, stripping away their facades. Then, his eyes settled on Cassie Thorne, and a faint, almost imperceptible smile played on his lips, the same ironic smile Mr. Finch had worn weeks ago, now imbued with a chilling knowingness. "Actually, Miss Thorne," the man said, his voice rich and resonant, devoid of any tremor, any hint of frailty, "I believe I can. This is, after all, my company." The air crackled with unspoken tension. Marcus Sterling's jaw dropped, his carefully composed expression shattering into disbelief. Evelyn Hayes's eyes widened in utter shock, her face paling. But it was Cassie Thorne whose face went from irritation to a mask of utter horror, a dawning realization that turned her features ashen. As the man took another step, the subtle facial prosthetic that had previously been a part of Mr. Finch's disguise became evident, now slightly askew, clinging to his cheek. With a smooth, practiced motion, the man reached up and peeled away the thin, almost imperceptible layer of silicone from his cheek and forehead. The change was subtle but profound. The lines softened, the age seemed to melt away, revealing a face that was unmistakably younger, sharper, more vibrant, yet undeniably the same. The man was Silas Venture. The founder. The CEO. The legend. A collective gasp filled the room, followed by a stunned, absolute silence, heavy with the weight of the impossible truth. Mr. Finch, who had been sitting at the head of the table, now rose to his full height, his movements fluid and powerful, shedding the last vestiges of his elderly persona. His eyes, now undeniably Silas Venture's, bore into Cassie's with a chilling clarity, a judgment that offered no reprieve. The gold key he had revealed earlier now rested openly in his hand, a symbol of absolute authority, of the power to unlock truths and close doors. "Silas. Mr. Venture." Cassie stammered, her face paling to an ashen white, her voice a terrified whisper. Her perfectly composed facade shattered completely, revealing a raw, unadulterated fear. Her mind raced, a frantic, desperate scramble to piece together the impossible puzzle. The old man, the disheveled applicant, it couldn't be. But the eyes, the undeniable presence, the subtle shift in his features, it was him. The man she had ridiculed, insulted, and summarily dismissed was her ultimate boss, the architect of her fate. Silas Venture stepped fully into the room, his gaze unwavering as he addressed the stunned board members, his voice resonating with quiet power. "Good morning, gentlemen and ladies. Or perhaps I should say, good morning, my dear employees. I believe some introductions are in order. You all know me as Silas Venture, your CEO. What you may not know, however, is that for the past several weeks, I have also been known as Silas Finch." He paused, letting the words hang in the air, allowing the full weight of the revelation to sink in, absorbing the collective shock. "I have spent this time among you, not in the plush executive suites, but on the ground floor. I have seen, and more importantly, I have experienced, the true culture of venture tech innovations." His voice, though calm, resonated with an undeniable power, each word a hammer blow to their carefully constructed illusions, to their complacent self-assurance. His eyes, still fixed on Cassie, burned with a quiet intensity, a cold fire. "Miss Thorne," he began, his tone cold and deliberate, each word a precise accusation, "your presentation on efficiency metrics is indeed compelling. However, it seems to lack a crucial component, humanity. You spoke of cutting the fat, reducing people to non-essential operational overhead. Tell me, Ms. Thorne, do you recall a certain unsolicited applicant named Silas Finch, who came to your department just a few weeks ago, seeking merely an honest day's work? Cassie's eyes were wide with terror, a primal fear that stripped away all pretense. She tried to speak, her mouth opening and closing, but no words came out, only a choked sound. Her carefully constructed world was crumbling around her, piece by agonizing piece. Silas continued, his voice rising, filling the room with his undeniable authority, leaving no room for doubt or denial. You dismissed him with contempt. You called him a liability, suggested he belonged in a soup kitchen or a retirement home. You dehumanized him, Miss Thorne, not because of his skills or lack thereof, but because of his perceived status, his appearance. You embody precisely the soulless, profit-at-all-costs mentality that has begun to rot this company from the inside, consuming its very essence. He then turned his gaze to the rest of the board, his eyes sweeping over their pale, shocked faces, each one a testament to their complicity. And you, he said, his voice encompassing them all, a collective indictment, you have allowed this cancerous ideology to fester. You have prioritized quarterly gains over the well-being of the very people who build this company, who pour their lives into its success. My company. Silas took a deep breath, his chest expanding with a quiet fury, a righteous anger. The test is over. And I regret to inform you, Miss Thorne, and indeed, many of you in this room, that you have failed. Spectacularly. The silence that followed was absolute, deafening, heavy with the weight of shattered careers and exposed moral failings. The grand architect of their fates had revealed himself, and the consequences, they instinctively knew, would be swift, merciless, and utterly transformative. The mask was off, not just Silas Ventures, but the masks of greed and indifference that had hidden within the heart of venture tech, now laid bare for all to see. The aftermath of Silas Ventures' dramatic revelation was nothing short of a corporate earthquake. The tremors of his return rippled through venture tech innovations with devastating speed and precision, shaking its very foundations. For Cassandra Thorne, the fall was swift and brutal, a public spectacle of deserved humiliation, her carefully constructed world collapsing around her. As Silas concluded his indictment, his voice echoing in the stunned boardroom, Cassie Thorne's mind raced, a desperate scramble for self-preservation, for any shred of dignity or defense. Mr. Venture, wait. You don't understand. I was merely maintaining company standards. It was a test of resilience. I was trying to protect the company's image. Her words tumbled out, a pathetic torrent of flimsy excuses, each one thinner than the last, a desperate attempt to grasp at straws. She tried to rise, to approach him, to plead her case, but her legs felt like jelly, refusing to obey. Silas merely raised a hand, stopping her cold, his gesture absolute. Spare me your pathetic justifications, Miss Thorne. Your words and actions spoke volumes. They revealed a heart devoid of empathy, a mind consumed by greed, and a leadership style that would ultimately destroy the very fabric of this company, ripping apart its human core. Venture tech was built on innovation, yes, but also on respect, integrity, and the belief in human potential. You have systematically dismantled those values, one policy, one dismissal, one callous word at a time. He turned to Ms. Albright, who stood poised by the door, her expression grim but resolute, her loyalty unwavering. Ms. Albright, please escort Ms. Thorne from the premises. Her employment with VentureTech Innovations is terminated, effective immediately. And ensure that her access to all company systems is revoked. She will also be subject to a full audit of all her past initiatives, particularly those related to efficiency optimizations and personnel reclassification. A strong feeling suggested several instances of unethical, if not illegal, conduct would be uncovered, a trail of ruthless actions. Cassie gasped, her face a mask of disbelief and horror, her carefully applied makeup unable to conceal her utter devastation. You can't. I have a contract. I'll sue. This is defamation. She shrieked, her earlier composure completely shattered, her voice echoing with impotent rage. But her threats were empty, her power an illusion, her carefully built empire crumbling. 2 security guards, seemingly appearing from nowhere, quietly entered the room, their presence a silent, undeniable testament to the finality of her fate. Ms. Albright, her expression grim but resolute, simply gestured towards the door. Cassie was led out, still protesting, her voice echoing in the silent corridors, a stark contrast to her earlier haughty pronouncements. Her reign of corporate terror had ended, not with a bang, but with a whimper, exposed for the cruel facade it was. Her carefully cultivated career, built on the backs of others, crumbled in an instant. She would lose everything, her luxurious apartment, her high-end car, her carefully curated social standing. Her reputation, once her most prized asset, would be irrevocably tainted, a cautionary tale whispered in corporate circles, a permanent stain on her legacy. The immediate fallout extended beyond Cassie. Marcus Sterling and Evelyn Hayes, who had enthusiastically endorsed Cassie's draconian policies, found themselves under immediate scrutiny, their positions suddenly precarious. Silas informed them, in no uncertain terms, that their positions were on probation, their careers hanging by a thread, and their continued employment would depend entirely on their ability to demonstrate a radical shift in their ethical compass and a renewed commitment to the company's foundational values. He assigned them to a newly formed, corporate ethics and employee well-being task force, a cruel irony given their past actions, but a direct order from the man who now held all the cards, the absolute power. Their faces mirrored Cassie's initial shock, though they managed to compose themselves enough to offer contrite apologies, knowing their careers hung by a thread, their futures uncertain. Meanwhile, far from the dramatic boardroom, Liam sat at his desk, still reeling from the news that had spread like wildfire through the company intranet. Silas Venture is back. He was undercover. Cassie Thorne was fired. The rumors buzzed like agitated bees, a chaotic symphony of gossip, but Liam, head bowed over his keyboard, couldn't quite process it. He remembered the old man, Silas Finch, the sandwich, the quiet conversation. He remembered the raw kindness he had felt. It seemed too fantastical, too unreal, to connect him to the legendary CEO, the mythical founder. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. It was an internal call, from Ms. Albright, Silas Venture's personal assistant. Liam's heart pounded, a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He answered, his voice a little shaky, uncertain. Liam O'Connell. Mr. O'Connell, this is Ms. Albright. Mr. Venture would like to see you in the boardroom, immediately. Her voice was crisp, professional, betraying no emotion, no hint of the upheaval that had just occurred. Liam's stomach dropped. He imagined the worst, his mind racing with possibilities. Had he done something wrong? Was he about to be reprimanded for giving away company property, even if it was just his lunch, a simple act of charity? He walked to the boardroom feeling a dread certainty that his small act of kindness had somehow backfired, that his good intentions would be punished. He entered the grand room, now devoid of the board members, only Silas Venture and Ms. Albright remaining. Silas stood by the panoramic window, looking out over the sprawling city, a contemplative expression on his face, lost in thought. He turned as Liam entered, and a gentle smile, unlike any Liam had ever seen on an executive's face, graced his lips, a genuine warmth. Liam, Silas said, his voice warm, utterly different from the cold authority he had used with Cassie, devoid of any pretense. Please, sit. Liam sat on the edge of a luxurious leather chair, its plush comfort a stark contrast to his nervous discomfort, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. Mr. Venture, sir. I don't understand why I'm here. Silas walked closer, a genuine warmth in his eyes, a profound appreciation. Do you remember an old man, a Mr. Finch, who came through HR a few weeks ago, looking for work? Liam's eyes widened, a dawning realization slowly spreading across his face, connecting the impossible dots. Yes, sir. I offered him my lunch. Silas nodded, his smile widening, a silent acknowledgement. You did. And that simple act of kindness, Liam, meant more to me than you could possibly imagine. While others saw only an old, disheveled man to be dismissed and humiliated, you saw a human being in need. You, despite your own struggles, showed genuine compassion, an innate decency. That, Liam, is the true essence of what I want VentureTech to be, the heart of its purpose. Liam was speechless, a mix of disbelief and overwhelming relief washing over him, a powerful wave of emotion. This wasn't a reprimand, it was something else entirely, something far greater. Silas continued, his voice gaining a quiet solemnity, a promise of transformation. I built this company on principles of integrity and human value. You, Liam, represent those principles. Therefore, I am offering you a new role. You will be my executive assistant, working directly with me to reshape the culture of this company. This will come with a significant increase in salary, a full benefits package, and opportunities for advanced training and education, fully funded by VentureTech. Furthermore, Silas paused, a knowing glint in his eye, a hint of the true depth of his gratitude. I've learned of your family's financial difficulties. Consider all your outstanding medical bills, and any associated debts, cleared. Effective immediately. A trust has been established in your name to ensure your family's future security, a gesture of thanks for your unwavering kindness when it mattered most, when it was least expected. Liam's jaw dropped. He blinked, tears welling in his eyes, blurring his vision. He tried to speak, but only a choked sob escaped, a torrent of emotion. His mind reeled. His family's struggles, the endless worry, the quiet desperation that had haunted their lives, all gone. A new job, directly with the CEO, a salary beyond his wildest dreams, a future secured. It was a tidal wave of relief and gratitude, a miraculous reprieve. He felt lightheaded, overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of the reward for a simple sandwich, for a simple act of humanity. Mr. Venture. I don't know what to say, he finally managed, his voice thick with emotion, barely audible. Silas placed a reassuring hand on Liam's shoulder, a gesture of paternal warmth. You don't have to say anything, Liam. Your actions already spoke for you. You deserve this, and so much more. This is not just a reward, it is an investment in the kind of future VentureTech truly deserves, a future built on compassion and integrity. Silas felt a profound satisfaction, a rare sense of peace that surpassed any business triumph, any financial gain. He had found his answer, and in doing so, had begun to heal the soul of his empire, one compassionate act at a time, one life at a time. Months passed, and the echoes of Silas Venture's return reverberated throughout VentureTech Innovations, a constant reminder of the seismic shift. The company underwent a profound transformation, not merely in its policies, but in its very spirit, its guiding ethos. Silas, now firmly at the helm, initiated sweeping reforms, his vision clear and unwavering. The punitive efficiency metrics were abolished, replaced by a focus on employee well-being, innovation, and ethical conduct. New programs were introduced, fostering collaboration, creativity, and a genuine sense of community, rebuilding the trust that had been eroded. The cold, sterile corporate environment began to thaw, replaced by an atmosphere of respect and shared purpose, a renewed sense of belonging. Cassandra Thorne, true to Silas's word, found her world utterly dismantled. The audit of her past initiatives revealed numerous instances of questionable accounting practices and manipulative data presentation, designed to inflate her own performance metrics at the expense of employee morale and long-term company health. She faced not only unemployment, her career in tatters, but also legal repercussions and a civil suit from former employees she had unjustly dismissed, their voices finally heard. Her name became synonymous with corporate malpractice, a cautionary tale whispered in corporate circles, a stark warning for those who believed ruthlessness was the sole path to success. Stripped of her power, her wealth, and her carefully constructed image, she was left with nothing but the bitter taste of her own hubris, her own self-serving ambition. Her fall was complete, a stark testament to the universal law of reaping what one sows, a karmic retribution. Liam, however, soared. As Silas's executive assistant, he proved invaluable, not just for his meticulous organizational skills and sharp intellect, but for his inherent empathy and moral compass, his unwavering commitment to doing what was right. He became Silas's trusted confidant, a bridge between the CEO's grand vision and the everyday realities of the employees, ensuring that humanity remained at the forefront. His initial shock had given way to a quiet confidence, and he embraced his new responsibilities with a passion, finding purpose in his work. His family, now free from financial burdens, flourished, their lives transformed by his act of kindness. He moved them into a comfortable home, ensured his younger siblings had access to the best education, and saw his parents finally able to relax, their faces etched with relief and gratitude. Liam never forgot the simple sandwich that had changed his life, carrying it as a symbol of the profound impact a small act of kindness could have. He championed employee initiatives, advocating for those who might otherwise be overlooked, ensuring that VentureTech truly lived up to its name, a place where ventures were supported, and human potential was innovated. Silas Venture, observing these profound changes, felt a peace he hadn't known in years, a deep satisfaction that transcended any business triumph. He had not merely saved his company from a soulless trajectory, he had rediscovered its heart, its true purpose. He spent less time in his opulent mansion and more time walking the halls of VentureTech, engaging with employees at every level, a benevolent patriarch guiding his reawakened family, fostering a sense of community. He often saw Liam, bustling with purpose, his face alight with a quiet joy, and Silas knew his great experiment had yielded the most precious result of all, the confirmation that even in the most cutthroat of environments, true character would always shine through, illuminating the path forward. The world, with its relentless pursuit of power and profit, often obscures the inherent worth of an individual, valuing them only for what they can produce or what they visibly possess. But as Silas Venture so profoundly demonstrated, a person's true character is not revealed in the glare of success or the comfort of wealth, but in the shadows of adversity, when all outward markers of status are stripped away. It is in those moments of vulnerability, when presented with a choice between indifference and empathy, between cruelty and compassion, that the true essence of a soul is laid bare. For goodness, like a quiet flame, may often be overlooked amidst the roaring fires of ambition, but it is in the darkest of times that its warmth truly illuminates, proving that kindness, however small, is never truly lost, and always, in time, finds its extraordinary reward. If you were moved by Silas Venture's incredible journey and Liam's heartwarming integrity, you're in the right place. We share powerful stories of justice, transformation, and unexpected twists every week. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next compelling narrative. We love hearing from you. What was the most shocking moment in this story for you? Have you ever witnessed a small act of kindness make a huge difference? And if you were Silas Venture, what would be the first thing you'd do after revealing your true identity? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below.